Well, good afternoon. It's nice to be here. This is my first time, I hope not my last. We are getting older. I was thinking on the way down that there's no football to watch, there's no racing to watch, there's no snow to shovel. So if it weren't for this banquet, today could probably be the most boring Sunday in January. I was really quite pleased that Punky Caron asked to have me come and tell some stories about him. Well, that about covers it. Actually, I could probably detail a very storied career, particularly at Monadnock and Claremont. The number of races he's won, the number of championships he's won. And I recall that there were a number of drivers who used to talk to in the pits who were very concerned when they came to Monadnock because Punky was the police chief in Goshen, New Hampshire. And they felt that if they violated him on the racetrack, if they ever went through Goshen, he would, seek reprisals. Please understand something. First of all, during those days, Punky was a logger, which meant he worked from sunrise to sunset, so you could go through town unscathed. Second of all, the population of Goshen, New Hampshire is 741. If there was crime, it was occasional speeder, a DWI, or some kids squealing their tires on the main highway. Punky was the police chief, which meant that either because he was police chief, there was no crime, or there was no crime because he was police chief. Or you could flip that around if you wanted to. Most of Punky's exploits have been written about in the papers, but there's one race where Punky was a ringer. And this is how it developed. Some of you in the racing world probably know a guy named Brian Hickey. Brian was the chief financial guy at Dover. He worked at Hinsdale Raceway, harness track, and he raced a little bit around our racetracks. He set up a deal in the 70s. He thought it'd be really cool if the top 10 harness drivers at Hinsdale Raceway would race in our six-cylinder division of Monadnock, and the top 10 Monadnock drivers would go over and race sulkies at Hinsdale, which was a better deal for us because they had a great dining room and we got free food, and that was really cool. And as you know, when we race on a racetrack, you line them up 2 by 2. When you race harness racing, which would never work on a racetrack, I line them up across the track with a moving gate, and when they open the gate, they all dive into turn 1. You can imagine what would happen on an oval track. They did it. We had probably 7 or 8 guys that had a little practice. They got on their race. The gate went away, it closed, headed off into the corner, and the first guy into turn 1 was Punky Caron. He was also a half a straightaway ahead of everybody else by the time the rest of them came out of turn 2 and won the race. What they didn't know was in his early years as a logger, they logged with horses. So racing a sulky was a ringer for him because it was 1 horse, not 2, a regular horse, not workhorses, and there was no log on the back. That's the one win probably out of the close to 200 that he has kept quiet. Chief among his accomplishments, in addition to wins at many tracks around New England, in one span he won championships at both Claremont and Monadnock in the same year. Monadnock, 75 wins, 74 wins. At Claremont, that many, if not more, plus several wins at lots of other racetracks. The most fun, I think, I had watching him race was against Ollie Silva. Some classic battles. A lot of people felt that when Punky was behind them, it was not good, that when they spun out, it was his fault. I can tell you from sitting up in the tower, there was always this much daylight between his front bumper and their back bumper. However, I'm sure that if you took a tire temperature of the right rear tire, the guy in front of Punky, it was way out of whack. And he may have aided them in exiting the lead position, but he never really helped them, did he? The only time I ever saw complete full-body contact was the one time he launched the 121 over the back of Ollie Silva's car going into turn 3. Ollie had to stop short for something, and Punky was on the gas and went right over the top of his car. That was probably the most spectacular ride I've seen him take. Next to one he probably took driving up here from Virginia for this event today. Without going into a whole lot more detail, it's my extreme honor to introduce to you one of my favorite drivers of all time and one of the guys that I've always enjoyed watching racing. Would you please welcome to the Near Hall of Fame, Howard. His mom calls him Howard. We call him Punky Caron.
Well, I'd like to thank the near inductees before me to give me this chance of being here today. I didn't think it'd be this big, this magnitude. I'm really proud to be here and hope that I can make several trips after this to enjoy more chats like I had today with the people I hadn't seen in a while. I don't have a long speech, but in my career, our stint with the 121, I'd like to thank a couple of guys, Glenn and Kurt Werkler, that owned the 121, mechanicked it. They actually slept with it. But this car was capable of winning no matter who drove it. This car was 110% every race that I ever went to. I enjoyed driving for him. We had a good relationship. It was fun. And after we honed our skills a little bit, we became competitors that we didn't think we were going to be. But we became competitors because of their devotion to make sure that that car was 110. And I appreciate that very much, Kurt and Glenn. You're the reason why I'm standing here today. And hopefully I'll be sitting down watching you here someday also. Second, I'd like to thank another crew that I drove for in my latter part, the number 11, which was owned by Ed Pelletier and wrenched by Doug Falzer Reynolds, which is a 4-year stint that I drove their car. The same thing as the Worklers. The owner was just fabulous as far as the right car, a good car, and Doug Falzer Reynolds, the same as the Workler boys, just 110% mechanically. And had 4 good years with them and 3 championships. So I also want to thank them for me being standing here also. Good cars, wins, that's why I'm here. Last, I'd like to thank my wife that put up with me for 47 years, and it was race, 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 race. Never complained. Never complained, and always made sure that our 4 boys were ready to go on time. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, darling. Also, highlight my career was, as our sons got older, they thought, well, gee, show Dad we're just as good as he is. So they got their little stint into racing. The street stocks, as up as they went, and proved to Dad that they were just as capable as Dad was, turning a wheel and winning races. They gave their mother and I a lot of good times watching them. Not in it that long, but the length of time that they spent in it, they proved to Dad that they were a threat, so you better not stay where you are long. So thank you very much for the induction, and I hope that I see everybody here next year. And thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. My pleasure.